David thinks he owns it. I think he thinks that because I left the band in 1985, that he owns Pink Floyd, that he is Pink Floyd. I'm irrelevant.
Pink Floyd are one of the most critically and commercially successful bands of all time. They've sold over 250 million records worldwide. They've won more awards than your nan has mustache hairs. Their albums are considered some of the best ever made, and they've influenced the likes of David Bowie, Queen, and Radiohead. The two driving forces of the group, David Gilmour and Roger Waters, had their fair share of squabbles though, eventually leading to Roger Waters quitting the band in 1985, where the feud only intensified. This is the story of one of music's greatest ever feuds, and let me ask you a question. Whose side are you on? Gilmour's or Waters? Hi, I'm Adam, welcome back to Music Mongoose. It all started in 1965 when Roger Waters founded Pink Floyd, or the Pink Floyd sound as it was called then, with Syd Barret, Nick Mason and Richard Wright. Before that, at university, Waters had been in his let's name this band something ridiculous phase, making music in groups called the Screaming Abdabs, T-Set, Spectrum 5, Sigma 6, Leonard's Lodgers. It was during these years that he'd collaborate with Nick Mason and Syd Barret. The foundations of Pink Floyd were brewing. The feud, though, really begins in 1968, the year David Gilmour officially joined Pink Floyd. Now, to understand where this feud comes from, you have to understand that David Gilmour was unapologetically creatively driven. He had a vision, and he wasn't afraid to run with it. And this caused Waters to feel threatened. He suddenly felt like he wasn't the captain of his own ship anymore. Despite this, the two worked together for nearly 20 years, producing some of the world's greatest albums in the process. Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here and The Wall being obvious examples. Pink Floyd was creating some of the most unique psychedelic rock the planet had ever seen. And Roger Waters, as lyricist and conceptual leader, was steering the ship. That's not to say the others didn't have any input though, because they certainly did. Richard Wright, for example, the unsung hero of Pink Floyd, goes rather underappreciated, I think. But his contributions made a huge impact to the sound of Pink Floyd. From his work on the organs to the synths, he was an incredible part of the team, and like Gilmour, made a big impact. However, in the late 70s, fueled by the success of Dark Side of the Moon, Waters began tightening his ship, creatively overshadowing the other members and dominating the writing process. Animals, released in 1977, was the first Pink Floyd album without any songwriting credits for Wright. Then, during the writing of The Wall, Waters became just too domineering for Wright to handle, and it led to his departure from the group. Wright would eventually rejoin the group, but as a salaried musician rather than a full member. And fun fact, he was actually the only person to profit from the live shows of The Wall because they were just so expensive to make. But as a salaried musician, his money was in the bank. That was a smart move, Wrighty. Very smart. During this period of tension, and also feeling somewhat underused in Pink Floyd, David Gilmour began producing his own albums, the first of which, self-titled David Gilmour, was released in 1978. This was Gilmour showing the world what he could truly do when he wasn't under the restriction of Roger Waters. And Waters liked his stuff. In fact, one of the tracks he had been working on for that album actually ended up on The Wall, Comfortably Numb. This didn't alleviate the power struggle between Gilmour and Waters though, and in 1985, Roger Waters left the group because of creative differences, let's call it. However, Waters, believing he was the main creative force behind the group, believed that Pink Floyd simply couldn't just continue without him. A year after leaving the group, he began legal proceedings to dissolve Pink Floyd, calling them a spent force creatively. David Gilmour and Nick Mason refused to fold, eager to continue Pink Floyd and create new music. They argued that the group was very much still alive and well. The case raged on for months before eventually being settled in 1987 with Waters backing down. He blamed the costs of the proceedings as the main reason. He also did later in life admit that he was probably wrong to have done all that. The Gilmour-Waters feud, however, was far from settled. It raged on for many years, despite some temporary truces. The main one was in 2005, as the band reunited as part of the Live 8 benefit concerts. Waters, Gilmour, Mason and Wright performed as the classic Pink Floyd lineup for the first time in more than 24 years. This would be the last time Richard Wright performed, with the group sadly passing away in 2008. In the show at Hyde Park, they dedicated Wish You Were Here to none other than Syd Barret. He would pass away a year later in 2006. Now, I have no idea what Bob Geldof did to get Pink Floyd to reunite like that, but it was probably illegal or disgusting or both. Or maybe they just love charity. Who knows? After that performance, the four were offered a £150 million deal for a tour of the US. They turned it down. Not even 150 million quid could get Waters and Gilmour to work together long term again. That's how you know it's a proper feud. There were a few more temporary truces over the years as well. Gilmour and Waters performed together in 2010 for a charity called Hoping Foundation. And according to the audience, they were laughing and joking just like old times. And in 2011, Gilmour performed Comfortably Numb with Waters at the O2 in London, and along with Nick Mason, performed Outside the Wall for the show's finale. Ah, great, the feud is over then. No. In a 2014 interview with Rolling Stone magazine, Gilmour took a little dig at Roger, saying the thought of him coming into something that has any form of democracy to it, he just wouldn't be good at that. Implying, of course, that Waters couldn't collaborate with anyone, effectively. In 2018, also speaking to Rolling Stone, Nick Mason gave his thoughts on the whole feud. I think the problem is Roger doesn't really respect David. Roger was always under the impression that singing and playing the guitar were things that anyone almost could do. But it was the lyricism and the concepts of the project, the stuff that was in Roger Waters' wheelhouse, that was the true soul of the band. In 2020, Waters took a swipe at Gilmour on Twitter. Ah, remember Twitter? In a 5-minute video, he rants at the fact he's not able to have access to Pink Floyd's social media, also accusing David Gilmour of banning him from the Pink Floyd website.
Well, the answer to that is because nothing from me is on the website. I am banned by David Gilmour from the website.
He then ranted about how Polly Sampson, David Gilmour's wife, was able to use these channels to promote her novels and projects, but Roger Waters' solo stuff wasn't allowed anywhere near it. Now, if you thought that surely after 40 years the pair still can't be squabbling, well, as recently as 2022, the pair had disagreements over a re-release of their album Animals. Gilmour had this to say: "A very lovely Animals remix has been done, but someone has tried to force some liner notes on it that I haven't approved, and someone is digging his heels and not allowing it to be released." Obviously referring to Waters there, Gilmour seems to be hinting at the pettiness of the whole thing. Shortly after this episode, Waters began voicing some questionable political opinions on a smattering of topics, and it caused him to be in the spotlight once again. Polly Sampson, Gilmour's wife, then took to Twitter to condemn Roger Waters for the stuff he said, and David Gilmour later backed her up as well. Sadly, Roger Waters, you are anti-Semitic to your rotten core. Also a Putin apologist, and a lying, thieving, hypocritical, tax-avoiding, lip-syncing, misogynistic, sick with envy megalomaniac. Enough of your nonsense. Phew, she didn't pull any punches there, did she? So even after nearly 40 years and a shared, storied musical history together, the pair are still feuding, like two old cats hissing at each other from different parts of the room. Whose side are you on though? Or is it stupid to take sides in the first place? Should we just appreciate and admire the music that Pink Floyd was able to produce? As always, opinions and thoughts welcome in the comments below. You can click over here to learn about the time that Pink Floyd accidentally grounded all flights in London. And if you made it this far through the video, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with my regular videos. And with that, I'll catch you next time on Music Mongoose. Okay, bye now!